Welcome to the View from the Inside podcast. I'm Kevin Richardson, your host and the president of Tactical Wealth Management. This is episode number 13, and happy summer to everybody. And before I introduce our guest, which I'm always fired up about the guests that we get, but this is going to be super fun, I just want to do a little hit about financial advice this summer. Summertime, again, probably finances maybe not top of mind, but I just want to implore everybody to take some time and look at your investments and figure out how much of your portfolio is in the stock market, how much of your portfolio is in the bond market, and how much of your portfolio is in the alternative market, something like commodities or gold. And the reason I say that is if we look at what's already happened in 2025, we've had a pretty big drawdown in the S&P 500, came down almost 20%. We've rallied back, and everyone has kind of just forgotten that. But take some time. If you're a client of Tactical Wealth Management and we haven't gone over your asset allocation, give us a call. We'll set up an appointment and get into that for you. And if you're not a client, do this on your own, because what you're trying to quantify is, hey, what's a worst case scenario if the stock market correction happens at some point in the next year? You just want to be ready for that. And you also want to maybe pull out those statements and look at what your account had done back earlier this year, just so you're ready for it in case we get some more market volatility going into the fall. Again, not financial advice, but just some practical protocols, if you will, to kind of manage your own money going into the fall as we finish out 2025. And as we finish out the summer and get into the fall, everybody that knows me knows that my favorite season is football season. And today's guest, I'm so fired up to have him on board. His name is Jerry Quickel. He has got one of the best Twitter handles you've ever seen, because on that Twitter handle, he'll actually show you his collection of football helmets, and it's one of the biggest in the world. And we're going to get into the specifics of that and talk about that collection in today's podcast. But before we do that, Jerry, thanks so much for taking some time from Olathe, Kansas, to get on and record this podcast, The View from the Inside. So fired up to have you.
Well, thanks for having me on, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Well, you've got this football helmet collection, and I'm not going to guess, because I know a guy like you is always adding to that collection, right? Yeah. And I know your number is well over 500 helmets. Maybe you can tell us, how many helmets do you have? Where do you keep them? And kind of what got you going on collecting football helmets?
Well, as of yesterday, the total went to 618.
I love it.
So yeah, it's an ongoing process. I keep them in my basement. I have my basement walls racked out, and they hang by the face mask in rows. I do a ring around the top with the Division I schools, try and keep them by conference, but that's been a challenge lately. And then I have a Division II, a Division III, an FCS, and an NAIA section that I try to keep everything together on. So it makes a little bit of sense, but starting to run out of room. But as far as how I got started in this thing, like when I was a kid, my dad was a high school football coach.
Oh, right on.
And so I grew up around it. Now, once we got a little bit older, back in the day, you really had a hard time making a living as a coach and a teacher. So he got into the pharmaceutical sales game shortly. But we grew up around football. It was a passion in our family. My father played Division II football at Emporia State. My son played Division II football at William Jewell College here in Kansas City. And then my grandfather played for Northwestern Oklahoma State, which is a Division II school in Northwest Oklahoma. So it's in our bloodline. I'm the one that got skipped with the talent, apparently. So I didn't get to play college football, but I love it. I grew up as a little kid, started collecting the gumball helmets.
Okay, I know
It's really,
those.
really
Yeah.
what got me started. And then you take that, and then Dairy Queen came out with the Sunday in a helmet. So, you
Oh,
got to have
right.
those when you're 10 years old. So it just advanced on to that. When I first got out of college, my first job was a sales rep for Riddell Sports out here in Kansas. I had Kansas and half of Missouri. So I started my career in that business. And so I've got a lot of contacts, a lot of equipment manager friends, a lot of coaches. As you know, the coaching and equipment manager business is a real transient business.
Right.
They may be here for a couple of years, but then they may be in California, or they may be in New England or wherever. So they move around, and the more contacts you have, the more they move, and it's really a small world in the coaching world. So
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's fun.
tell me a little bit about this sales job selling Riddell helmets. And for maybe the people that don't follow football helmets, maybe as close as you and I, but Riddell is kind of the premier brand for football helmets right now. The majority of the helmets, I would guess. And maybe talk about the evolution of the football helmets, because that's super interesting, even for people that aren't into football.
Sure. Well, yeah. And the Riddell thing was a little interesting because when I first got out of college, it was 1990 when I graduated from college. Riddell didn't have a direct sales force. They had manufacturers reps.
Okay.
And so I was a manufacturer's rep. We represented Riddell. We also had several other sporting good lines, but we called, the schools would buy them from the sporting goods store. They wouldn't buy them from Riddell direct.
Okay.
When I left Riddell bought a reconditioning company called All American Reconditioning.
Okay.
They had the Max Pro helmet.
Okay.
And that went away, of course, with Riddell's helmet being the premier helmet.
Right.
But the reconditioning services all got folded into Riddell. And so they hired direct sales reps at that time.
Okay.
So I had already moved on into a different world, a business world.
Mm-hmm.
But I managed to hang around the University of Kansas for another 10 years or so, working the sidelines and working the equipment room just for fun, just because my buddy was the equipment guy over there. And so I got to be exposed to a lot of it. But that's how I started in the business with Riddell. If you want to talk about the history of helmets, in the 20s, 30s, 40s, they were leather helmets that progressively turned into a plastic shell. And then that plastic shell had some padding on the inside, just foam padding glued to it.
Yeah, the old, I'm thinking of the old Rawlings helmets of the 80s. Those things were hard as a brick. And I remember Terry Bradshaw wore a Rawlings helmet with the Steelers.
The Steelers were big on that. The Bears were big on Wilson helmets. You see Walter
that's right.
Payton
Yeah.
wearing a, and those things are, you wonder why, Riddell's big deal was they had the suspension helmet. We called it the cobweb helmet. It was the Army helmet.
Yeah.
John Riddell, he invented the helmet for the Army, and it was just suspension straps locked into a shell. A hard shell.
Okay. I did not realize that.
It kept your head suspended between the hard shell, but there was no padding in the thing. And, that worked its way up through the 70s and then the early 70s. And then you had all kinds of varieties of helmets come out, water inside the helmets. Of course,
water freezes. Water freezes too, right?
Yes,
they figured that out after they did the water helmet.
And it's very heavy, very heavy. So, Bike came out with the air helmet in the mid 70s. And then of course they sold that to Schutt.
Right.
So there's a couple premier helmet companies now, which is of course Riddell, and then Schutt Sports. And then I believe I want to say Visus is how you say it. I may be pronouncing that incorrectly, but like Patrick Mahomes here in Kansas City wears a Visus helmet. That's a it's a kind of a quarterback specific type design, but they're a third company. Light is a fourth company out there. So there's several guys dabbling in it, but Riddell and Schutt are the two main drivers. The main things that you're going to see out there are going to be those two companies.
Now, for everybody that was like an 80s and 90s guy like myself, so that Riddell helmet back then, was it the VSR? Is that what it was called? It had the little air packets in it, right? That was, you either had a bike helmet, which is what I wore, or the Riddell. Was it a VSR? Was that the right name?
Yeah. Yeah. So bike had that, the Pro Air one that was like two blue inner tubes.
Yeah,
on
you
the
had to
inside.
pump it up. Yeah, got to get some air in here in warm-ups. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then Riddell countered that with first they had the VSR 1, which was just the back liner you could air up.
Okay.
And then they went to the VSR 3, which allowed the back liner, the top, and then the side. So you had 3 points you could air up on that. So really get a custom fit on it. And then it's just progressively moved on from that. Now they do some really cool stuff now with the technology, as far as I believe Schutt and Riddell all scan heads, and they will make a custom fit liner on the inside that is built specifically for that player. So it's interesting to see some of the things that come into my collection, because, I typically get a reject or an aged out helmet sent to me from a school. And so there's a 10-year life policy on helmets. They have to get rid of them after 10 years. So typically that's what I get. So I'm on a lag of what the current thing is when guys send them. But every now and then I'll get one that's a newer model. And so I've got several that you can really check out.
So to go total helmet geek here, Riddell, you're maybe getting a Speed Flex occasionally that has the floating front part of the helmet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've got several of those. And then the Schutt F7, which is an adjustable, it's got adjustable pieces on the outside of the shell.
Oh, that's right.
Those are some of the newer models, but typically I get a lot of Riddell Speeds, which was before the Flex.
Right.
And you're starting to see those start to age out a lot of places. So I get a lot of Riddell Speeds.
Okay. And then probably no Axioms in the collection. That's the brand new Riddell to go further down that helmet path. But that thing almost looks like a space helmet when you watch a player put one of those on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've actually had one of those on. So, I mean, I was at Kansas one day, I put one on and played with it. The field of vision on those things is incredible. They're cut wider on the side, and they changed a lot. Why they look so funny is that the face mask is mounted inside of the helmet down here.
Right.
So there was no bar when it first came out that came out and around.
Okay.
Enhancing your vision.
Yeah.
But it also you look like Kazoo from the old cartoons, it was like you had a massive head.
Yeah.
But I think the kids really, I think they really didn't like the look. So Riddell went back and they changed some of their mask options for that, so that they still have the bar around the opening. It makes it look a little more aesthetically pleasing.
Okay.
But those are all scanned to fit one-off helmets for those kids, and they're very expensive.
Yeah.
The technology's fantastic, but they're very expensive. So that's why I probably don't have one sent to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And for people that are listening to the podcast that have never maybe played football, when you think of field of vision, as a broadcaster, I'll always talk about an ear hole shot. Well, that means some guy hits you from the side, literally in the ear hole of your helmet. Well, a lot of times with a football helmet, if you're watching this video, as I kind of use my hands to explain it, but with the older helmet, you couldn't see that guy that was lining up for the ear hole shot. And of course, that's semi-illegal these days too, which is a good thing that football has kind of gone that direction. But I can totally see, I haven't had one of those helmets on, haven't had the need to, I guess. But boy, that having that field of vision to where you can see the blocker out of the corner of your eye, or the tackler if you're an offensive player, man, that makes total sense. makes you kind of wonder on some of those from the 80s, like what we were even thinking, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, how was this going to turn out well, right?
Well, you think about, I was in high school in 1983. So, the bike air helmet was kind of new and it was the cool new thing. And
Yeah.
before that, you go in the 70s, you go back and look at some of those things and you go, well, no wonder why these guys had CTE. I mean,
Right.
no kid. And the technology from the mid 70s to now is just night and day. And so I think you're going to see over the next 20 years, you're going to see those numbers decrease on one, how the rules of the game
Yeah.
have changed and how the equipment is advanced as much as it has. You'll probably see those numbers drop off. I'm sure there's still going to be something there, but
Yeah, no, and I think of my broadcasting career, and I think it was 2015 when they passed that defenseless player rule, which was really a game changer. Now, late in a game, you'll spend a lot of time when the referee stops the game and does a review to decide was that an illegal hit, and that seems kind of onerous at times. But when you step back and look at the bigger picture, boy, we've taken those earhole shots out of the game, and yeah, that's good for everybody. Nobody needs to nobody needs to go that far, that's for sure. Well, talk about your collection. I see it on Twitter. I just love it. I'd love to come into that basement and spend a Saturday watching college football with all those footballs around you. But you've been on the local news, and if memory serves me correct, you've had ESPN, CBS Sports. They've used your collection a few times, right?
yeah. I think it kind of blew up when, first of all, I'm an old guy, so I'm 60 years old, so I'm not a social media genius at all. My daughter talked me into, hey, you ought to post a couple of those. They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so I started putting them up, and it took off a little bit. And then right at the beginning of a season, ESPN, I got a DM that said, hey, would you mind if we use your content? Of course, I don't know what that means. I'm like, sure.
Do I have to pay you for that?
I guess. I don't know what. And so I gave them permission. And then about 2 hours later, my phone just started going crazy. And it was, they had posted about it. And all of a sudden I went from having, 500 followers to 10,000 followers.
Oh, wow.
And it had happened in a week or something like that. My phone died from all of the alerts I was getting. And I was just, okay, this is new to me, but hey, let's write it. It's kind of fun. So my daughter started that for me, and then I just keep it updated, and a lot of people like to follow along, and it's been a positive, for the most part, a really positive interaction with people. I try to be inclusive to all levels of schools because I really do love the smaller stuff.
Right.
And I try not to be show my fandom too much. And
right.
And I'm not going to sit here and bag on the Missouri fans or anything like that because I just don't need that argument in my life.
Right.
But it's it's fun. I try to represent everybody and just promote the game.
Well, and if you are wondering the reach of your social media, so as a financial advisor, we'll have mutual fund wholesalers come to our office and visit and talk about their different mutual funds. And the other day I had reached out to you via Twitter to see if you'd be on, and you'd said yes. And right then the mutual fund wholesaler walks in for our meeting. This guy's name was Reed McDermott, and really good guy. And he said, how's your day going? And I said, well, it's great because I have Jerry Quickel set up for my podcast later this week. And he literally didn't miss a beat. He said, that's the guy with that huge football helmet collection. He was all over it. So anyhow, if you're questioning your chops on social media, you've got it nailed. One of the guys we see on social media all the time is a guy named Michael Barker. And Michael Barker runs a Twitter handle called College Football Campus Tour. So it's CFB campus tour. And he tries to see how many college football games he can go to in a season. Last year, he went to 104 college football games. And on game 89, he was actually in Honolulu, Hawaii. That was the only game in the nation on Christmas Eve. And San Jose State Spartans, where I handle the broadcast, he came into the booth. And for me, it was my 200th college football broadcast.
Oh,
so we
cool.
did this little hit on Twitter beforehand and talked about my 200, his 89th on the year, and then this goal that he had to get to 104. And I know that he stopped in and looked at your collection at one point when he was in your part of the world, catching one of his 104 football games in a college football season. By the way, both really cool things anyhow, but you know him, correct?
Yeah. Michael is a great guy. And I met him through social media, of course, because, that's how
what
this
we
works.
do.
But met him through social media. And then I was lucky enough that he came by and saw everything. I like Michael, and I like it for the reason why I think my account is fun is we do it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
We're not out, and I really could care less if I have 50,000 followers or whatever, but it's all positive stuff about the game and what it means to people and how it brings people together. And Michael's he's a very interesting guy, and man, he really gets after it during the season. I mean, I love football, but 104 of them, that's crazy.
Yeah, that is as good as it gets. Well, you talked about arranging those helmets by conference, which has become a problem. Anybody that's listening to the podcast that follows college football knows that the conferences are in flux. There's lots of movement and stuff going on. But I got to ask you, being the San Jose State broadcaster, we got the Spartans over the shoulder there. How many Mountain West helmets do you have? Do you know off the top of your head?
Well, I can make that easy for you. I have a helmet from every Division I school with the exception of 2.
Wow.
So I have all of the Mountain West. Now they're starting to show some age.
Right. Okay.
But they're, because I've been doing this for 30 years. So,
right.
Some of them may be a little older, but, Wyoming, I made a trip out last year it was to get the Northern Colorado helmet.
Okay.
Because I just couldn't get them to respond. And I had some time, some PTO time at work. And I thought, well, I'm going to fly to Denver for the day. And then I ended up at Colorado State and then at Wyoming and in Northern Colorado and came home with 3 helmets. And yeah, I mean, it's just the people are fantastic out there. The Wyoming guys gave me a tour.
Oh, wow.
That was phenomenal.
Right.
I mean, it's just, they treated me like a king. It was really fun.
And they've got a brand new facility too up there.
Yeah, they were working on the stadium. Most of the facilities new, but they were putting in some suites in the stadium and doing some really neat things up there. The wind blows there quite a bit. I figured that out.
Yeah, it does come off the Rockies in a hurry. And then you know what? I got to give props to the Pokes. Steamboat, the bucking horse on the side of the helmet, right, with Cowboy Joe on top.
Yeah,
that's got to be one of my favorite logos in all of college football, not just the Mountain West Conference. I got to say it's pretty cool. So a guy like you that has so many helmets, do you have a favorite logo or a favorite helmet? And I'm sure it's maybe not just one. Do you have a few that are your favorite?
Yeah, that's really hard to narrow those down. I mean, there's so many classic ones that you just, say in Ohio State or in Michigan or Texas. I mean, right. You see them all the time, but they're really cool.
Yeah.
Classic looks, but iconic looks that you maybe don't see as much out there. I just think there's the Kansas helmets that I have. I'm such a homer when it comes to that. We're the only one with a Jayhawk, and it's a mythical bird. So we got great colors. but that bird looks really good on everything. I love it on the basketball stuff.
Now,
And
memory serves me correct. Jayhawk helmets, because that's your favorite university. You've got a few, right? Not just one or two.
26 of those.
There it is.
That's the one that I'll try to go back and get one from every look that they've had. And it's been a challenge, but to find some of the older ones. But yeah, they do. And, typically programs that struggle change their look a lot, trying to reinvent themselves
Right.
with a new coach here and there. So we've had some options lately, but hopefully we're on the right track now with Coach Leipold, and the program is healthy and getting a new stadium going.
So that's what I was going to say. You guys did a big stadium redo, so you're off and running there. I know that you also, besides enjoying football helmets, you enjoy going and visiting different schools and looking at different stadiums. So
So give you a little background. I was a national sales manager for a plastics company for a long time. And so I was coast to coast, calling on retailers, coast to coast. And so, I would be in Providence, Rhode Island by myself on a Tuesday.
Okay. All right.
What do you do? Well, you
Go look at
see all the things. If I'm going to, San Francisco, you can only look at the Golden Gate Bridge so many times. I first started out, I thought, well, I'm going to get every Major League Baseball stadium while I'm doing this.
Right.
So I got that under my belt, and I've actually seen a game at every one of those places. And Niagara Falls or the Empire State Building or whatever it may be, you've seen all the landmarks. But, 14, 15 years is a long time to be out there in the middle of the week by yourself. So I always stop at a college, and it doesn't matter how big or how small it is, and check out the stadium, check out the university. The university vibes are cool. Just going to see campus and young kids, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are your favorite FBS stadiums out there?
FBS. Well, I saw Miami and Florida State play at Florida State.
Okay. That had to
I've
be
seen
fun.
a Georgia game. Probably the coolest place I've been was when I was working the locker room for Kansas. We played Notre Dame on the road.
Okay.
And so being in Notre Dame Stadium, it was also the Eddie Robinson Classic, which was an old kickoff game, one of the first games of the year. And so at the coin toss was Gale Sayers for Kansas and Paul Hornung for Notre Dame, and Eddie Robinson was with them.
Wow.
So I was standing in the tunnel behind those guys when they went out for the coin flip. So that's probably the marquee moment of any stadium that I've ever been in. But
yeah,
I love them all. You'd be surprised what you'll see. There's some Division III schools that you go, wow,
yeah,
this is impressive.
Yeah, pretty neat.
And most people don't think of Division III as that, but there are places where it is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I saw the inside of Notre Dame Stadium in 1988, and yeah, they were pretty good that year. So that was a rough day, but it was an impressive stadium. But you don't really care when you're on the losing end, that's for sure.
Yeah. We were in it at halftime. I like to say that. We were right there at halftime.
Yeah, I've called games at Alabama and Auburn, and of course that SEC vibe. That's super cool. I got to hand it.
Didn't you guys win at Arkansas?
Won at Arkansas. Now that was actually one of the 5 San Jose games that I've missed over the last 17 years because I had 2 boys that played in high school, and there was a game that I just couldn't miss for one of my boys. So I missed that road win at Arkansas. Yeah. How about that?
Wow.
And then the other one is that we always kind of walk by out here is the Los Angeles Coliseum, with all that history and multiple Olympics having been played there. And, for a while, it was just kind of a worn out stadium before they dumped all the money in on this last redo that they did. But boy, that's super cool. And then we also kind of ignore the Rose Bowl out here if you're West Coast people, and
Yeah.
called a couple of San Jose games against UCLA. And, it's like, we're in the Rose Bowl. Like, this is super cool, and it's just like, well, yeah, but it's really big and it's not full today or whatever. But, that's kind of how
those are great. I've been to both of those just on a day when nothing was happening. And, it's amazing how far you can get into a facility when nothing's going on. So.
Right. And I don't know if you follow the guy on Twitter that goes to all the different stadiums. And his name is escaping me right here, but boy, he's got some outstanding content.
Is he the guy that hangs around after the game to see how long and how he can stay with before they throw him out?
Yeah. Do they actually throw me out, or can I just spend the night inside the venue? Yeah. And he just kind of gives this unvarnished look. And, I played my college football at Stanford, and he got into Stanford, and he was walking around just kind of saying what he thought. And it was interesting to listen to someone call the facility for like what they see, right? Versus, when it's a game day, for people that aren't familiar, the TV guys, they set it up to make everyone's facility look really, really good. And so this guy cruises through and just kind of says, wow, that looks weird. Hey, that's pretty cool, and you don't really think of it in that context. So
he's an interesting follow too. Yeah, he's got some good stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could wander around that long. I'm always the guy that gets caught, even if I have the game day pass on. They're always like, hey, get that guy out of here. So
didn't that guy do that at the NFL draft in Green Bay this year, where he ended up in the green room back after it was like 30 minutes after the draft was over and everybody was gone. And he ended up at the podium and then back into the green room taking pictures of where everybody was sitting, and there was no one around.
I love it. Well, right on. Well, you know what? This was a great way to spend a few minutes, as I know you, like me, summertime's great, but summertime is even better because you can feel it, that football's less than 100 days out. And I appreciate you taking the time to talk about your collection. I want to make sure everybody gets on your Twitter handle. It's at Jerry Quickel. Pretty simple.
Yeah. Just my name.
Yeah. And then the other part is, if you do a quick Google search, you can find a couple of the local news deals that they did with you, which I found just really, really cool. And being able to see that
that's
collection.
Cool. Yeah. I've got a piece on there too that I had, Marty and McGee on SEC Network had me on.
Oh, cool. Okay.
That was a real fun one. So I've got that tagged on there too somewhere, and it's certainly worth it.
Right on. Well,
those SEC guys are crazy.
Oh yeah, that is next level stuff. That is for sure. Well, again, Jerry, thanks so much for your time, and hopefully our paths cross here from a football standpoint down the road. But I know that I just thoroughly enjoy your Twitter handle. Anybody that loves football, be sure and give Jerry a follow, because it's just fun stuff, and like you say, rarely do you find people that are doing it for all the right reasons. And you're that guy. You're just saying, hey, this brings me joy. I want you guys to check it out, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. And I've enjoyed talking with you today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me on, Kevin. I really appreciate it. That does make me feel good, because sometimes you wonder, is this worth it? I mean, yeah, so it's nice. I appreciate you having me.
Hey, the only thing better than football is more football. That's for sure.
That's right.
So anyhow, big thank you to Jerry Quickel. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Remember, the best thing you can do is give the show a follow, share this podcast. And if you got financial questions, always give us a call, 831-717-1144. Shoot me an email, krichardson@tacwealth.com. And on behalf of Jerry and our producer, Bill Tucker, and the good people at Proudmouth, thanks for tuning in, and so long until next time.
Thank you for listening to the View from the Inside podcast with Kevin Richardson. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. To ask questions about topics covered during the show, head over to www.tacwealth.com. And don't forget to check the show notes for additional contact information. Kevin Richardson is a registered representative with and securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.